Welcome back. Today we wrap up the second playthrough. But first, just a reminder of how not to play the game. This was fresh off the victory of Ashura after I pumped everything full of Phantom Pain and just went to town with her. The downside, of course, is without any sort of durability points or Phantom points bolstering attack, it goes poorly. And still not bad, still an excellent result with 26 seconds, but just undesirable in general. So let's just jump ahead to the point where I get what I came for. The reason he was so resilient was because of these. Morgan's nails. As you can see from the information board on the bottom, the spelling is ambiguous to say the least. In this case, it is supposed to be Morgan Le Fay from the Arthurian legend, Arthur's arch nemesis, and I think Mordred's mother. Once we clean up the ogre zombie, we'll see just why that is such a wonderful piece of equipment. And another thing that I don't care about anymore. Already got one, and I already got something better now. The Morgan's Nails, 10-point boost to strength, 15 to intelligence, to agility, and then 15 across all the class affinities and everything else you can want. Compared to 5, 5, and 1, or a few other things. So aside from if you want to go for a niche target of 30 points here or there for the elemental attack, you can't do much better than that. Now with that equipped, let's just see how quickly things change. A marked improvement on killing death. Not really enough to cut any actual attacks out, but it's still a minor improvement, about 10%. Now let's go back down to the Iron Maiden. We have some unresolved business here. First, though, a little bit of preparation is in order. Like getting cancer. Very important to do. Now, very early on in the game, I brought up a little bit of detail about a hit point threshold, and at the time all that did was change the add a wolf or add a bat or take one away. Now it changes actual enemy spawns. Rather than having Shriekers, we have Dark Crusaders. Now these guys, as you can see, are carrying Romphias like the first Dullahan and a couple other enemies have done. However, these guys actually can drop these weapons. Originally I was going to try and deal with grinding out axe, break arts and things, but Not worth it. I'll do that off screen. Now, if I was so inclined, I could wander around here with above 150 hit points and fight Shriekers all day like I originally did. And they would drop accessories rather than weapons. But those accessories would be basically either slight variants to Nimji Coifs, which have a couple of random affinity boosts, or just 30-point boost things like the equivalent items to the beaded anklet and things of that sort. I have Morgan's nails, and I'm going to get something else soon, so those are irrelevant to this. Technically, even getting these Romphias they're a curiosity, honestly. Which is why I'm just plowing right through these guys with silver and Hagane ones. I will, however, stop and take this guy. I'm not going to show this in this video, and I'm not entirely sure if I will show it later on, but the weapons like the Ramphia or the Hand of Light have an extra mechanic behind them. They're, let's just call them sacrificial anodes. If you toss them at another piece of equipment, as long as it's not something larger than it, it will just replace the material of the blade that it's combined with and convert it to it. So if I wanted to, I could take my Wakizashi and turn it into a Damascus one. And thank God for traps not being able to kill you. So here we are back with this guy. Since I didn't really feel like having him invigorate himself, just lay out the curse. And get annoyed at his inability to get it. Another nice thing about these guys, these drop Elixirs of Queens quite frequently. So if you're grinding for these weapons, you're going to see a marked increase in hit points. But anyway, let's wait until we get to what we really want. Attached is a Galarian gem, which, much like the Morgan's Nails, is a horrible butchering of Arthurian legend. Apparently that was supposed to be named after Galahad. There's some other ones. Polaris, at least in the records that I show, was supposed to be Sir Bors. Not entirely sure about that. The Tertia gem is supposed to be Sir Tristan. There's a Basivalin, which is supposed to be Percival. Bedivere is, that not that too poorly translated of Bedivere. Gervin, Gawain, again, not too poorly seen. Barian is supposed to be Sir Geraint, and not Berial or Bellius or Velius or whatever you would consider for the Royal Black Pearl. There's a Lancer gem, which is Lancelot. There's a Sigil gem, which is the top tier dragon one, which isn't Arthurian legend, but it's supposed to be Sigurd of Norse mythology. And second to last is the Ultima gem, which is the butchering of either Ultima or Ultima from Final Fantasy Tactics fame. And by the way, seeing as how I've got 100% map completion, this is going to be the beeline to the end. Anyway, while we're doing this downtime, this beeline path is going to be after the fourth large room. You go into the one four-way intersection, which would lead to the two treasure rooms. You continue straight, turn left, and then go straight, and then you reach the final room of that basement. So a much quicker route than the one I took. To simplify things, this is the first room out of that teleport, or once you actually start bouncing around the map. So it's here that we want to turn left. And I don't really care about him. And despite all the logic, I'm not entirely sure why I wanted to deal with this guy either. My eye is firmly on the prize. Also, despite these guys being the second class living armors, they are quite resilient still. And they're just hit point sponges, so it's... Pay no attention for me walking this way. I'm not entirely sure why I did that. Maya wasn't so much on the price as I originally thought. You can't really see it through the rafters, but this is the brass ring. The Last Crusader, which again, surprisingly, despite the fact that Dark Crusaders are the second enemy you meet in this family, they are considerably stronger than this one. About twice as many hit points. Again, I'm not complaining because this makes farming this much easier. He's got the Holy Wind, the lightning rod that Rosencrantz used as an improvised sword. He's got about a 3% drop rate to hand that over. And surprisingly, it is not the worst rate of items in this game. Boss fights like, I believe, Father Dwayne and a couple of other ones have a 1 out of 256 or 255% chance, whichever, whether or not they include 0 in that in the hexadecimal number or not, of dropping an elixir. Not worth farming. Definitely not worth farming. Especially when you consider you can beat up training dummies without too much hassle. The Arturos gem is the best gem in the game. It is, from the description as you can see, legendary king. It is supposed to be King Arthur. And you get $30 points across all affinities. Good stuff. I'm going to farm for 2 of these. Just because. I mean, if I really wanted to, I could farm for 5 or 6. The reason I'm stopping at 2 is because, well, with this weapon, you're not going to be equipping a shield. So you don't need to lump a whole bunch of those in there. And I'm stopping at the 3rd one because the 3rd gem is going to be just using whatever elemental gem I need to break my enemy over my knee. Since if I were to just go across with all gems, then I would have some difficulty getting light or dark affinity on it, so not going to do that. And by the end of this, you see that one of these is good enough. Renamed it to be appropriate for the British legacy. It was always my preferred dragon killing weapon anyway, even though I knew that it didn't really matter. And here we are. We can now actually damage her straight out. Not too much, but it's much better than 0 points. Oh yes, I forgot to mention, during the grind for the Holy Wind, I finally got Phantom Shield, which is absolutely and totally forgettable, like I said, and also about 100 hit points worth of elixirs. again, Phantom Shield will just negate X amount of damage that you take. That being said, if you've noticed, excluding the fact that I'm not using a shield now and probably won't ever again, the best shields that I have 0 phantom points, so they're completely useless there, and anything that does have phantom points to it has less than 100 for the most part, so it's anything that I want to negate 100 hit points of damage, I want to negate a lot more than that. So I'll be using something that would actually negate half of damage or 40% of damage or reflecting X% of damage. I will not be using Phantom Shield. All that was a barrier to getting the achievement. Finally, I can't remember if I mentioned this before or not, but Damascus is just a grade of steel. I'm not entirely sure if in the original Japanese they were unsure of the difference between Damascus and perhaps maybe orichalcum or some other mythical material. Damascus steel, also known as wood steel in India, is just a steel with a high carbon content. It makes it elastic, it gives it a nice wavy grain texture in the metal, but beyond just being kind of remarkable and I guess somewhat legendary in the fact that we forgot how to make it for about 500 years. It's not something that would be able to kill gods or anything particularly special. Now to really break her, we are using Luft Fusion, and that adds about 30 points of damage on top of that. Last but not least, we've got Marlene's Ring, which is, again, horribly butchered. That's not supposed to be Marlene, like the daughter from Final Fantasy VII. That is Merlin. Merlin the Magician. The best accessory of the game. Flat out bonuses across the board. An additional 20 points of damage basically on top to Ashura. Beautiful stuff. Not to mention the boost in intellect and agility to make it a little bit easier to hit. Oh dear, magic point damage. I don't even want my magic points, but I'm going to take them back. Critical hit. Now let's see what this does against the final boss.
You have the ring, and I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Now let's see how you handle it.
And I use it to take off about half your hit points, and the other half. You're not going to last much longer. And since I don't really care, I'm just going to toss the fairy wings on to go fast. And again, I'm not entirely sure why the layering screws up during the final boss. It didn't do it in the first playthrough, but it did it every time after that. But it doesn't really matter. Basically, just in case he decides to get uppity. Now just imagine once I get strong enough to start ruining his day with a crossbow. Even then I probably won't use a crossbow, but it'll be fun anyway. And that's it. And that's the end of the second playthrough. The ending is the same and all that, but join me next time when I either do the no magic run or the sub 10 hour no save run, which would honestly be about 3 or 4 hours. Until then, thank you for watching again.